10 years ago, everything changed. Without warning, an enormous inverted castle appeared in the sky above Tokyo, casting its shadow over the entire city. At the same time, dungeons began to manifest all across Japan, bringing chaos to the world. With the dungeons came the awakening of mana, a new power hidden within humanity. Those blessed with talent became known as mages. They challenged the dungeons, defeating monsters, and in doing so they gained wealth, fame, and prestige. A mage's talent could be seen through the color of their mana. Normally, a person would show aptitude for a single color. However, on rare occasions, dual-color wielders would be born. Those who could control two different mana attributes at once. Among them was his younger brother, Kurosaki Kai, a rare dual-color wielder of blue and red mana. Even among the awakened, he was special. Now standing before a massive demon inside a dungeon, Kurosaki Kai faced the creature without a trace of fear. The demon lunged forward to attack, but Kai met its charge head-on. With a sharp gleam in his eyes, he unleashed a devastating spell. Demon's Lance. A massive surge of mana shaped into a crimson lance shot forward, piercing the demon with overwhelming force. The creature was thrown back, crashing into the dungeon wall, defeated in a single blow. Beside him stood another boy, silent and unnoticed, until Kai casually tossed a small crystal at him. Kai called the boy incompetent and told him to hurry up and pick up the crystal. Kurosaki Kai is formally introduced as the Purple King, Kurosaki Kai, and was level 89. Kai was one of the strongest mages of his generation, a rare dual-color wielder who had earned fame and recognition. Meanwhile, his older brother, Kurosaki Rei, was an anomaly of a different kind, a complete incompetent with no aptitude for magic. In a world where mana colors define one's destiny, Rei was entirely colorless, a true rarity. His level remained at 1. Despite everything, Zrenya Rei refused to give up on his dream of becoming a mage. Clinging to a fragile hope that he might one day awaken a skill, he worked as a porter, carrying supplies for Kai's party, thanks only to his younger brother's pity. Holding on to his naive wishes, Rei stared down at the dungeon crystal in agony. Clutching it tightly in his fist, willing himself to believe in even the smallest sliver of hope. Suddenly, Zrenya, a massive set of doors appeared ahead of the party. One of the mages commented that it must be the boss room, while another remarked confidently that the boss should be easy to deal with at their current strength. The doors slowly opened, and Kurosaki Kai, Rei, and the two other mages stepped forward into the room. Standing there waiting for them was a black figure, a being far more ominous than any monster they had faced so far. The figure revealed itself as Kronos, the god of time and space. His level and presence were overwhelming. The entire party froze in shock except for Kai, who stared at Kronos with a cocky smirk, mocking the entity's appearance and dismissing him as unimpressive. Without hesitation, Kai launched his strongest spell, Demon's Lance, the same devastating attack he had used to destroy previous dungeon bosses. However, the attack didn't even reach Kronos. He was easily able to block it. Kai's confidence faltered. Shock and a flash of fear appeared on his face. But before he could react, the counterattack came flying at him. In an instant, Kai was slammed into the ground, blood bursting from his body as he collapsed, completely defeated. Kurosaki Rei stood frozen, unable to believe what he was witnessing. The Purple King, the powerful Kurosaki Kai, had been taken down in a single blow. The two other mages panicked. Overcome with terror, they abandoned the fight, desperately fleeing the room. But it was too late for that as they were killed instantly. Meanwhile, Rei stumbled and fell to the ground, his mind spinning from fear and disbelief. Kronos' gaze fell upon Rei with mild interest. Recognizing his complete lack of mana color, Kronos mocked him, pointing out that he hadn't achieved anything and was still nothing. The words stirred something inside Rei. Anger and stubbornness flared up within him. With trembling hands, he drew a sword and held it before him, declaring silently to himself that he wasn't ready to die yet. Kronos found the display amusing, a colorless, powerless human daring to stand against him. Amused, he decided to test Rei's resolve. In a blur of motion, Kronos severed Ray's right arm effortlessly. Ray could barely process the pain or the speed of the attack. Mocking him further, Kronos casually snapped his fingers and muttered the word, "Rewind." In an instant, Zrenya Ray's severed arm was restored, as if time itself had been turned back. Ray stared in disbelief at his healed arm, realizing that the god before him wasn't even fighting seriously. He was merely toying with him. Kronos stood before Kurosaki Ray unfazed. He warned Ray that this time he would give him some time to think. Without waiting for a response, Kronos cast a terrifying sepal, hellfire flames of despair, consuming the area in roaring dark flames. He taunted Ray, asking what he would do now. Faced with the overwhelming flames, Ray realized that half-hearted attacks would be useless against a being like Kronos. But then he noticed something behind him, a sword that had appeared, seemingly created by Kronos himself. Without hesitation, Ray sprinted toward it, his body moving on pure courage and desperation. Gripping the sword tightly, he charged forward, shouting with all his might as he ran through the burning flames toward Kronos. Kronos, still underestimating him, was caught completely off guard. Ray's sword struck true, driving deep into Kronos' chest. For a brief moment, Ray felt satisfaction. He had landed a blow against an existence that should have been untouchable. Kronos stared down at the sword buried in his body, his expression a mix of shock and amusement. Then, with a devious smile, he simply uttered a single word: "Rewind." In an instant, time was reversed. Ray found himself back to the moment before his attack, standing with his old battered sword in his hand. Meanwhile, the wound on Kronos' chest healed completely, as if it had never been there. Ray fell to his knees, defeated. The weight of hopelessness crushed him as he realized that all his efforts amounted to nothing. Was this how he was going to die, without achieving anything? As despair consumed him, a blue system screen suddenly appeared before Ray, startling even Kronos. The notification revealed that because the presence of a god had been detected, a hidden power sealed deep within Ray was being unlocked. A power known as the Black Skill. Confused and stunned, Ray struggled to process what was happening. Kronos, too, seemed unsettled, sensing that something unexpected was unfolding. At that moment, Ray obtained a new ability called Skill Drain, one that allowed him to steal the abilities of others. Without hesitation, Ray activated his newly acquired power. Focusing everything he had, he invoked the stolen ability to command time itself. Kronos screamed in disbelief and agony as his own power was used against him. The world around Ray twisted and distorted, and another system notification confirmed what was happening. The regression process was now underway. In the next instant, Ray awoke with a gasp, finding himself no longer in the dungeon, but lying in a familiar bed. Still disoriented, noticing a mirror, he glances at himself. Staring at the reflection before him, realization hit him with full force. He was back, in the body of his younger self. A vision appeared, the image of Kurosaki Kai, speaking with a calm expression. Kai admitted that he wasn't strong enough to defeat Kronos, the god of time and space. That was why he had entrusted the stolen skill to Ray. If anyone could succeed where he had failed, it would be him. The scene faded, and Ray found himself once again staring at his reflection in the mirror. He questioned whether everything he had just experienced had been a dream. Startled by the sudden flutter of pigeons outside his window, Ray rushed to look outside. In the sky, he saw the inverted castle, still floating high above the city. But something caught his attention. The castle was pure white. He frowned, confused. He clearly remembered that until yesterday, the inverted castle had been pitch black. It had originally been pure white, but over the course of 7 years, it had gradually darkened. When it finally became completely black, the door had opened, and through that door had come Kronos, the god of time and space. As he stared at the sky, the memories flooded back with vivid clarity. He remembered the final moments of his fight with Kronos. He remembered stealing the ability, Rewind. Ray grabbed his phone and checked the date and time. His hands trembled as he stared at the screen, confirming what he already feared. He had traveled 7 years into the past. The system window appeared again, displaying his only current skill, Skill Drain. The ability Rewind, however, was nowhere to be found. Despite that, Ray smiled faintly. Having skill drain was more than enough. He reflected bitterly on his former life. How for 10 years he had struggled without ever awakening a single skill. Now, with this new power, he had a chance to change everything. A soft notification buzzed on his phone, pulling him out of his thoughts. A reminder popped up on the screen. Today was the day of the Mage aptitude exam. Chiyoda Ward, right in front of Tokyo Station, where the towering headquarters of the Mage Association stood. It was an enormous building, the national agency responsible for overseeing the mages who took on dungeon conquests. Kurosaki Rei made his way inside, glancing around at the pristine condition of the interior. It looked brand new to him, and he quickly reminded himself that it made sense. After all, he had traveled 7 years into the past. Before he could proceed further, a mocking voice called out to him. Turning toward the sound, Ray spotted two familiar figures, Goto, level 36, and Oiki, level 37. Lackeys who used to cling to his younger brother. The two made no effort to hide their amusement, sneering at Ray as they taunted him. They joked about how a colorless like him could possibly be here to take the mage exam again, mocking the idea that someone without mana affinity had any chance of passing. Unfortunately, they weren't wrong. This wasn't Ray's first attempt. Unable to let go of his dream to become a mage, he had taken the exam countless times before, fully aware that the odds were stacked against him. Each time had ended the same way, in crushing failure. Refusing to let them get under his skin, Ray forcefully yanked Goto's hand off his shoulder and brushed past them without a word. His cold attitude left the two men momentarily stunned, wondering what had gotten into him. As Ray moved toward the exam area and approached a woman, the exam proctor for today, Hinata Reina, a B-rank mage, level 27. Recognizing Ray immediately, she sighed in exasperation. It wasn't her first time seeing him either. She warned him, half seriously, that even though it was just an exam, continuing like this could eventually get him killed. But unlike the defeated boy she remembered, Ray now stood confidently. With the skill he had secretly acquired, things would be different this time. Calmly, he reassured her that he would be fine. Reina started to explain the rules of the mage exam, but after a moment, she stopped herself. There was no point. Ray already knew the procedure by heart after taking the test so many times. Kurosaki Ray's task for the mage exam was straightforward. Collect 3 magic stones from goblins scattered inside the dungeon. Normally, for someone who had awakened a skill, it was not considered a difficult challenge. However, just for today, just like in the future, he remembered, something went wrong. An abnormal incident occurred, one that had no place in a level 1 dungeon. As Ray moved deeper inside, a powerful presence appeared. A red cap, a monster at level 37, stood before him, radiating killing intent. Both Ray and the exam proctor, Hinata Reina, were stunned and terrified by its appearance. Something of that caliber had no reason to exist in a beginner's dungeon. Hinata urgently shouted for Ray to run. She knew the danger. The level difference between her and the red cap was far too great. In the world before Ray's regression, Hinata had fought to buy time for him to escape, facing the monster head-on. She was gravely injured in the process, so badly that she was forced to retire as a mage. And Ray had blamed himself for it all. His incompetence had ruined her future. But this time would be different. The red cap lunged at them. Instead of retreating, he threw his sword straight at the monster. He knew that ordinary attacks wouldn't even scratch a red cap, especially one with a skill that dramatically enhanced its physical abilities. His aim wasn't to defeat it with brute force, it was to use skill drain. As the red cap charged toward him, ready to deliver a fatal blow, its movements suddenly faltered. Its overwhelming physical strength disappeared in an instant. Ray's system window appeared before him, confirming his success. He had stolen the monster's ability. Body enhancement, extreme. His own physical stats improved drastically. Now empowered, Ray faced the red cap without fear. Without its enhanced strength, the monster was nothing more than a sluggish beast. In a matter of moments, Ray overwhelmed it, reducing it to nothing more than a lump of defeated flesh. For the first time, the outcome was different, and the future had already begun to change. Hinata Reina stared at Kurosaki Rei, still unable to believe what she had just witnessed. Defeating a red cap, a monster far beyond the dungeon's usual level, was already a miracle. But doing so with a single skill made it even more unbelievable. She silently acknowledged that his skill was an incredible power. Rei, meanwhile, decided it was best not to mention anything about the true nature of the black skill. When Hinata questioned him, he brushed it off, claiming that it was simply an accident. Hinata wasn't convinced for a second. She scolded him, telling him to stop lying, but didn't press further. She informed him that because an irregular monster had appeared, the exam would be canceled. She needed to report the situation to headquarters immediately. Technically, this wasn't the time when irregular monsters should have started appearing, according to Rei's memories, but things were already starting to shift. However, Rei wasn't thinking about that. He remembered that he still needed 2 more magic stones to complete the exam requirements. When he mentioned it, Hinata practically shouted at him in frustration, telling him this was no time to be worrying about mana stones. The dungeon had become too dangerous. Before she could say more, the sound of heavy footsteps interrupted them. 2 goblins emerged from the shadows, immediately putting both of them on alert. Without hesitation, he launched a swift attack, taking down both goblins in a single, clean blow. Hinata could only watch, stunned at how effortlessly he dispatched them. As Rei calmly moved to collect the mana stones from the fallen goblins, he asked Hinata if he could keep them. She was too speechless from shock to immediately answer. Later, standing in front of the Mage Association headquarters, Hinata handed Rei his mage license. Rei held it carefully, almost unable to believe that he was finally holding it in his hands. It had taken him a long time to reach this point. For 10 years, he had endured humiliation, working as nothing more than a porter. But now he had finally achieved his dream of becoming a true mage. Hinata also handed him a sheet explaining the system for exchanging mana stones. Mana stones, harvested from monsters, were valuable as an energy source. Clean, efficient, and without carbon emissions. They could be sold directly to the Mage Association. Because Rei had defeated an A-rank monster, the Red Cap, he was entitled to a significant reward. When he saw the payment amount listed, 3 million yen, he was utterly shocked. In contrast, the 2 goblins he had defeated were only worth 1,000 yen combined. Seeing his reaction, Hinata explained that it was only natural. After all, he had defeated a red cap. Rei realized just how lucrative being a mage could be. Encouraged by her words, Hinata added that if it was him, she believed he could earn even greater achievements in the future. Kurosaki Rei stared at the dungeon in front of him, almost unable to believe it. Written clearly on it was his name, Kurosaki Rei, and his new official status, rank C Mage. Hadn't even been allowed to enter dungeons solo. But looking at the proof of his achievement, he felt a wave of pride and determination. Hinata was still safe, still working as a mage, and thanks to the changes he had already made, the future was beginning to shift. A small but satisfied smile crossed his face. Without warning, a massive phantom hand materialized and grabbed him, squeezing him tightly. Startled, Rei struggled against it, just as 2 familiar figures approached. Goto and Oike, the former lackeys of his younger brother. Mocking him immediately, they questioned what a colorless mage like him was doing there. Oike sneered, saying it was ridiculous for someone like Rei to think he could enter a dungeon alone, while Goto pointed out that it was against the rules. Their laughter echoed through the hall, but Rei remained calm. He informed them that he had officially passed the mage examination and was now permitted to enter dungeons solo. They didn't believe him for a second, dismissing his words as lies. Oik, grinning cruelly, pressed down on Rei's head while conjuring his mana ability in his other hand, threatening him to prove it by showing his skill. Trapped by the phantom hand's grip, Rei quickly realized that simply relying on his own physical strength, even with body enhancement, wouldn't be enough to break free. However, his head was still free. Without hesitation, Rei slammed his forehead into Oik's face. Blood spurted from Oik's nose, and the spell restraining him, Manahan, was forcibly interrupted. At the same time, a system notification appeared. Skill Drain had successfully stolen Manahan. The conjured phantom hand disappeared, and the situation flipped instantly. Before Oiki could recover, Ray activated his newly acquired Monahan, gripping Oiki with the same overwhelming force he had just experienced. Oiki, now truly panicking, started to believe that Ray had indeed awakened a skill. Goto, refusing to back down, warned Ray not to get cocky. He attempted to launch a fireball spell, aiming directly at Ray. But Ray, now empowered with both body enhancement and Monahan, closed the distance instantly. In a blur of movement, he struck Goto with a single, devastating blow, sending him crashing across the floor. Staring at Ray in disbelief, Goto and Oiki questioned whether he had somehow become a dual-color mage, but Ray simply corrected them. It wasn't just two colors. Activating his status window, he revealed the newly stolen fireball skill, showing that he now had control over 3 different types of mana. Goto and Oiki stood frozen in disbelief. They had never even heard of something like a third mana color before. Their minds struggled to process the impossible sight before them. Without hesitation, Ray conjured a fireball and launched it toward Goto, not with the intent to hit him, but as a clear warning. Calmly, Ray asked if they still wanted to continue the fight. As soon as he released his hold on them, both Goto and Oiki immediately apologized frantically and fled, running out of sight as fast as they could. Ray let out a small sigh. However, a deeper worry quickly settled in. If his younger brother Kurosaki Kai found out about this, things would not end well. Memories of his past life resurfaced. How he was always treated like Kai's lapdog. If Kai discovered that Ray had awakened a skill, he would not stand idly by. Kai, who had already surpassed level 50, was considered one of the strongest mages of the modern era. And it wasn't just Kai Ray had to be wary of. Soon another event, the unlocking of a dangerous dungeon, would shake the world. For now, Ray had only one goal: to raise his level as much as possible. Without hesitation, he stepped into the dungeon alone. Level was the foundation of strength. By leveling up, a mage could learn new skills, expand their total mana pool, and most importantly, increase the amount of mana they could control at once. However, Ray's thoughts were interrupted as a powerful enemy appeared at the entrance. A Fulme wizard, level 38. The difference in power was immediately obvious. Ray could barely create a single fireball, while the flame wizard conjured flames effortlessly, showcasing a massive gap in strength despite using the same basic techniques. The flame wizard launched a blazing attack, forcing Ray to dodge desperately. It was clear he couldn't win in a direct confrontation. But no matter how high an opponent's level was, there was always one constant. After using a skill, there would always be a brief opening. Only 2 seconds. But during that time, even the strongest opponent became vulnerable. Seizing the moment, the Flame Wizard cast his spell. Ray closed the distance and delivered a powerful attack, sending the enemy flying backward. The system immediately responded, confirming that skill drain had activated once again. The fireball skill had been stolen. Without his magic, the Flame Wizard was left powerless. When he tried to retaliate, he realized in horror that his skill was gone. Ray pressed the advantage, launching fireballs mercilessly at his helpless opponent. System messages began to flood his vision. Multiple notifications announcing that he had leveled up. Defeating higher-level enemies granted large amounts of experience, though under normal circumstances, it would be almost impossible. But with skill drain, Ray could strip away their strength and turn the battle in his favor. Within moments, he advanced from level 8 to level 12. For now, Ray set his goal to reach level 30 as quickly as possible. Driven by that aim, he continued to hunt down and defeat various monsters, leveling up at an incredible pace. His experience soared, and soon he reached level 27. Even so, as expected, leveling up began to slow down. The higher he climbed, the harder it became. If he wanted to push past level 30, he would need to take down even stronger opponents. Ray stood before the massive doors leading to the deepest part of the dungeon, the boss room. He felt a surge of excitement. The monster waiting inside was the perfect opponent for him to level up even further. Without hesitation, he pushed the doors open and stepped into the chamber. Inside, 3 monsters awaited him. 2 smaller winged creatures, imps, each at level 30, floated in the air. Between them stood a far larger and far more menacing figure, a skull demon, level 45. All 3 monsters were higher level than Ray, But that didn't discourage him. If he could steal their skills, victory was within his reach. Without wasting a second, Ray charged forward, aiming directly at the Skull Demon. He unleashed a fierce attack, but the blow was stopped short. Surrounding the Skull Demon was a shimmering, invisible force, a mana barrier that completely nullified Ray's strike. He quickly realized the problem. As long as that mana barrier was active, he couldn't land a hit, and without direct contact, skill drain couldn't activate. The Skull Demon retaliated, lunging toward Ray with terrifying speed. Ray narrowly dodged the massive attack. Thinking quickly, Ray understood that breaking through the Skull Demon's barrier by brute force was impossible. Instead, he would have to shift his focus. If he couldn't touch the Skull Demon yet, he would start with the imps. Realizing he had to shift his strategy, Ray leapt high into the air, targeting one of the flying imps. His attack connected, landing a solid hit that allowed skill drain to activate successfully. A new skill was stolen, Ice Needle. Without hesitation, Ray followed up with a fireball, blasting the wounded imp and finishing it off. Turning his attention to the second imp, he unleashed the newly acquired Ice Needle skill, swiftly taking it down as well. With the smaller threats eliminated, Ray prepared to refocus on the Skull Demon, only to see the fallen imp suddenly resurrect. Normally, an enemy with resurrection abilities would be incredibly troublesome, but Ray saw it differently. For him, this was a convenient opportunity to gain more experience. He immediately eliminated the resurrected imp again, leveling up to level 28. The urge of growth brought a crucial change. With his level rising, his mana control capacity had reached the threshold needed to unlock a new ability. A system notification appeared before him, announcing the activation of skill synthesis. This was it, a turning point. Ray immediately tested it. By activating both Ice Needle and Fireball at the same time, skill synthesis fused them together, creating a new, more powerful spell. He named it on instinct as he unleashed it, Fire Lance. The blazing spear-like attack tore through the air, slamming into the Skull Demon's mana barrier. The barrier, which had previously been untouchable, finally cracked and shattered. Seizing the moment, skill drain activated again, and Ray stole the Skull Demon's defensive skill, Mana Barrier. Without wasting a second, he launched another direct assault. This time, he managed to steal an even greater prize, Body Enhancement, Extreme. With the Skull Demon's enhancements stripped away, it was completely exposed. Ray struck one final time with Fire Lance, annihilating the Skull Demon completely. The system flooded him with notifications as his level rapidly climbed, finally settling at level 33. Breathing heavily from exhaustion, Ray allowed himself a moment of relief. Skill synthesis. The ability to fuse skills into more advanced techniques typically only became usable around level 30. He had hoped he would be able to unlock it, and he was relieved that he could wield it properly. His thoughts were interrupted as another system notification appeared. Level requirement met. The number of skills retainable through skill drain had increased, expanding from 3 slots to 5. With more capacity to steal and hold abilities, Ray's strength would grow even faster. Later, when he returned to submit the green mana stone from the Skull Demon, Hinata Reina was visibly stunned. Learning that Ray had defeated a Skull Demon and reached level 33 in a single day left her speechless. When Ray shrugged it off, saying he just got lucky, Hinata shook her head in disbelief. She told him that she had never even heard of someone surpassing level 30 in a single day. She added that at his current level, Ray would automatically qualify to become a B-rank mage. Before Ray could even respond, a loud, familiar voice interrupted them. Turning around, Ray saw Kurosaki Kai, his younger brother, approaching with a mocking grin. Kai scoffed loudly, grabbing everyone's attention, and questioned if he had heard correctly. That the dog had become a B-rank mage. He insisted there must have been a mistake. Hinata, worried, called out to Kai, trying to calm him down. But Kai was already working himself into a rage. He laughed cruelly, stating that Ray, a man who couldn't even awaken a single skill, was now being called a B-rank mage? It was laughable. Hinata tried to defend Ray, explaining that he had actually defeated a redcap and a skull demon by himself. But Kai wasn't listening. His expression darkened with anger as he turned on Ray, demanding to know if it was true. Before anyone could react, Kai launched an attack at Ray, causing a loud bang that drew the attention of everyone nearby. However, Ray, calm and unshaken, easily blocked the attack. He looked directly at Kai and, without anger, simply warned him that it was dangerous to cause such a scene. Hinata shouted out in alarm, calling Kai's name, but he didn't even glance at her. His full focus was on Ray. Kai's eyes narrowed as he finally understood that the rumors were true. Ray had indeed awakened skills. When Ray calmly confirmed it, Kai's expression twisted into something darker. With a challenging smirk, Kai warned him not to get too excited just because he could finally use a few skills. Declaring that he would see for himself just how capable Ray really was, Kai made his intentions clear. Hinata, still trying to stop the situation from escalating, asked hesitantly if Kai truly planned to fight. Kai responded coldly that if Ray's feats were real enough to earn him a B rank, then proving himself wouldn't be a problem. Hinata opened her mouth to object again, but the words caught in her throat. She could only watch helplessly as Kai pushed forward. Mockingly, Kai suggested that perhaps all of Ray's achievements had been nothing but lies. Ray understood the situation immediately. If he refused Kai's challenge now, things would only get worse for him behind the scenes. His brother would find ways to ruin him quietly, without ever letting him rise. Accepting the inevitable, Ray gave his answer. He agreed to the fight. Kai, visibly disturbed by Ray's audacity, prepared himself. The duel was set to take place in the arena inside the Mage Association headquarters. Facing an opponent much stronger than himself, Ray knew he couldn't afford a single mistake. In battles like this, the amount of mana one could control at once made all the difference. At level 30, Ray could chain a maximum of 3 basic skills together, but Kai, already at level 50, logically could string together 5 basic skills seamlessly. If Ray tried to confront him head-on, the result was obvious: defeat. Thus, Ray planned to close the gap with his first move, an opening strike. Without hesitation, Ray launched ice needles toward Kai. At the same time, Kai countered with fireball. Their spells collided mid-air, creating an explosion in thick clouds of dust that momentarily blocked Kai's vision. Taking advantage of the cover, Ray dashed forward at full speed, using extreme body enhancement. Closing the distance in an instant, Ray appeared right in front of Kai and unleashed a fierce blow. Kai, startled, realized something important. Ray's first skill was blue, an ice element skill, but now he was using a yellow-colored physical enhancement skill. It meant Ray was a dual-color wielder. Ray remained calm. He was carefully counting Kai's movements, knowing that after Kai's fourth spell, his remaining mana would only allow 1 more basic skill at full power. Preparing his next move, Ray activated skill synthesis and fused Ice Needle and Fireball together into Fire Lance once again. Kai, shocked by the combined power, recognized that Ray was now using 3 different colored mana skills. Something unheard of, but smirked, showing no fear. He casually used his own Fireball to intercept the Fire Lance, and though there was an explosion, Kai's attack ultimately blocked Ray's. Ray frowned. His synthesized Fire Lance, a technique combining 2 full skills, had been overcome by a single basic fireball. Kai mocked him, noting that it wasn't surprising Ray was getting carried away, but he reminded him coldly that they were still on different levels. Taunting him, Kai urged Ray to dance for him, gathering more mana for another fireball. Ray attempted to maintain distance, preparing to fire another long-range Fire Lance. However, Kai launched his fireball relentlessly. Ray activated Mana Barrier to defend himself, but it wasn't strong enough. Kai's attack broke through, and Ray stumbled back, clearly worn down. Kai saw his advantage and sneered. Demanding that Ray bow his head, he promised to forgive him if he apologized immediately for getting carried away. Ray hesitated. His energy was low, and the situation looked hopeless. It would be easy to kneel and give up. But as he thought back to everything he had endured, the humiliation, the helplessness, something inside him burned. Refused. Ray met Kai's eyes and firmly rejected his demand. Kai, now convinced that Ray wouldn't surrender without force, coldly stated that it seemed Ray would only learn through death. Behind him, an enormous fireball began forming, a terrifying concentration of mana. Kai activated Overclock, consuming a massive amount of mana to temporarily double the amount he could control. Scattering multiple fireballs around him, he prepared his strongest move. Decade, a 10-combo fireball assault. Ray realized what he was facing. The overwhelming strength that made Kai one of the strongest mages of the modern era. Temporary but unmatched in raw mana output. But Ray, despite the danger, stood his ground. He had been waiting for this moment.